the last several months, in fact, a couple of years, we can say, especially after the pandemic, when we have started using screens for a larger time than what it was in the past, one thing which is coming up, Shandesh, is the repetitiveness of the content, the videos which we see, whether it is related to personal growth, productivity improvement, or even for that matter, financial influencers, what they talk about, the investment approach and all those things. All those things have started becoming very repetitive and just missing the juice in the whole conversation. So, as a creator, how one can look at this whole thing and bring something which actually resonates with who they are and at the same time resonates with their audience. So, that is a conversation which we would like to look into today. And maybe there are also implications of artificial intelligence now in today's world with ChatGPT and other things where those can further influence, because there is a conversation of, say, whatever we have done till now on 13th can all be put into a bot, and the content can be created based on what we both are speaking, and it may continue to speak the way we both speak. So it can be created that way. So how do we look at it? So that's the broader context for today's conversation.
Yeah. And extending from last week's conversation, Prasanna, what was occurring to me particularly is that there are three facets to creation. One is from art point of view, one is from design point of view, one is from craft point of view. From art point of view, if we are saying, then with respect to our podcast itself, if we consider, there is one parameter of choosing the topic. How do you want to position the topic? What do you want to really touch upon? And that's creative side of it. From design point of view, how we would like to present it, what we would like to touch upon, what is it that we are trying to touch and then talk about. From craft point of view, what is it that we are editing and what is it that we are portraying? How do we kind of even bring it together in a software and then make it presentable? So if art is about why, design is about how, and craft is about what, the amalgamation of these three facets really makes creation. A lot of times these three facets are equally distributed in a way that they, when equally or proportionately are distributed, your content is well approached, sort of well received, and also probably appreciated. It connects with other individuals. But if the proportion of one of the parameter goes high or low, then it starts becoming a game of sort of addressing this, and that is where we start facing the issue of creator's block, as we say. So I think balancing between these three aspects is very much necessary. Going forward, you also briefly touched upon AI and Chat GPT or Lambda. All these things which are coming into the market are going to be game changers. As always with any new technology, there will be a bit of resistance. That who is then the creator? Is the person feeding the parameter to this AI bot is the creator, or is the AI bot itself the creator? But that's also like saying that I use a certain software to make my drawings. Then is the software the creator, or I am the creator? I'm probably feeding in the parameters to draw or create a certain 3D visualization, but the software is then taking my parameters and developing it itself. Now the software is thinking also for us. So what is it then that makes the creation? That's something which I will touch upon a little later maybe, but first let's just address between these three parameters, three facets, domains of art, design and craft.
Yeah. So when it comes to the art aspect, I agree with you that the key element of art, of course, how we define art is something which depends on person to person. How one defines creativity depends on person to person. But if we look at some of the art which is created, like paintings or drawings, sketches created by artificial intelligence also, the thing is, it may look as good as or as bad as any artist has done. But the element which is missing there is the human context. And you may not, when I say the human context, that human context will only come into existence or picture when you know about it. If you don't know, then you just another picture. But the moment you know who has done that, in what state of mind, what is the context behind it, I think those things add to a human context. So even when we look at most of the artists or the poets of whatever time, we also know about those poets. We also know about those artists, and that makes that art more meaningful than the art itself. So I think that is a very important bifurcation or difference there when it comes to artificial intelligence or natural way of doing art. The other thing,
Can I interrupt here once?
sure.
Because you mentioned about human context, just because a machine is providing an answer does not mean that the parameter or that the human touch of it is missing in it. And what I mean by that is, it should not be confused that right now the human touch is missing as a universal quotient that always when a machine does, human touch will miss. We have to also understand that the technology is nascent right now, and therefore probably the human touch is missing. Now, what I mean by that is, if we take into consideration Sistine Chapel and when Michelangelo painted it, now it's almost, I don't know, 40 meters above the ground or whatever, very high up ceiling where the painting is there. And Michelangelo conceived the whole idea. He had apprentices who were not necessarily from Florence. They were from faraway land. They were from Sicily and other regions as well. And I'm not sure of that. We need to verify where his apprentices were, but they were from different regions, came who were not really aware of the context a lot of times. But there was a painting which was being done. Now, the other aspect is they are on a scaffolding standing very close to the ceiling and doing only a part of it without realizing what is the greater whole. But they are just taking the instructions fed by the artist, and the artist is keeping a distance and just observing. But somebody else is using their craft skill to just develop that. Now, whose painting is it? Is it the apprentice's painting or is it Michelangelo's painting still? It perhaps is the latter. And what I mean by that is that while making certain strokes, Michelangelo would have made differently, and certain color palette that he would have chosen would have been slightly different, maybe. Maybe sometimes he helped the apprentices mix the colors and guide them with the strokes when they climb up the scaffolding, but not necessarily every time. Sometimes Michelangelo climbed up, went and added a little detail, very specific that was needed. Probably when the two hands are meeting, he would have done the perfect amount of detail in that aspect. But otherwise, he maintained a distance, observed, and allowed the apprentices to paint. What I now have to look at is in reference to painting, which is 600-700 years old. Today, an AI is simply that apprentice which is taking instructions. Perhaps in the nascent stage, it's not good enough, but the instructions are still given by the human. And therefore, there is a possibility that the human touch can come into picture depending on who the artist is. Now, who is making or who is the creator? Is it the individual who is feeding the instructions or is it the AI bot? Just because the AI bot is limbless and lifeless, we assume that it's done by a computer and therefore a resistance. And just because any new technology or a new advancement comes, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, when in my profession as an architect, CAD drawings became the norm of the day, there were many of them who were slightly senior, slightly older people, had a resistance. They thought the purity is being lost and hand drawings are to be done. But as the software improved and as technology improved, that has become the norm of the day. Today, we are at the same juncture as a generation above was, perhaps, when we find it difficult for AI to kind of take over. We also feel threatened sometimes.
Yeah. No, no, I agree with you. And that whatever aspect of AI as a tool for enabling the creator may still remain and will be more enhanced. I think we are at the very early stages of AI. We are at the mainframe level of computing kind of. So from there to where we will reach in maybe 5 years or 2 years or maybe even a year down the line, we don't know. So that usage of AI or any other technology or tool as an apprentice used by Michelangelo is no problem at all, because I still believe that piece of art belongs to Michelangelo and not the apprentice, because it is same like the movie. When we see the movie, there are 100 actors or actresses and technicians and all, but all said and done, the movie belongs to the director. Of course, the producer is putting his or her money, but the movie belongs to the director, because the director is the spirit of that movie is with the director, and that person decides how the actions and implications and effects will be. Now, for example, we have been in the past also discussing about this movie Court, which is a very fascinating, fantastic movie. And if you see the movie Court, the effect of that movie, or whatever is the spirit of what a court is and how it should depict in the given scenario, has been brought in by Chaitanya Tamane, who is the director of it. But he has several times, like every artist, I believe, manipulated, and manipulative is not a good word in the right many senses, but he has manipulated to give you that effect of the chord. What he has done is to give you the real feel. He has actually recorded the background of a court, a real court. He has done the recording of that, and he plays that recording in the movie. So for you, the feeling
You
of
mean the sound recording?
is like real and alive. Sorry.
You mean the sound recording of the background of the court?
The background the background audio, the sound,
Uh-huh.
not the
Okay.
effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Not the visual.
In a courtroom. Yeah, if you go and sit in a courtroom, you will realize that within the courtroom there is silence. Lot of people are not allowed to speak and all. The moment you will go a little outside, there is this buzz of the lawyers and the other people walking and all those things. So that whole thing he has recorded. And he puts it same way in his other movie, Disciple, if you see, he has purposely given some effects, like the protagonist putting his headphone and going on a bike, listening to a third person's voice, and you will feel the slowness in the whole process, as if he is the only person going at night on a Mumbai flyover. But then there is an intentional impact which is caused on you, like magic. It's like a trick which is played. But the intention of the trick is, of course, genuine, and it's honest to give you more closeness towards that material, whatever the person or the artist is trying to share. So I think in doing that, AI will be extremely, extremely powerful. And that's where, again, coming to your analogy of Michelangelo and the apprentice, these all things will act as apprentice, but the brainchild will be of the artist, is what my way of looking at it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, who knows, our podcast would be then done, a major 80% of the work is done by the AI. Then whose podcast is it still? Who is delivering the content? And like you said, it is slightly overwhelming to think of these aspects, and therefore also feels that in the process, do we lose our identity? But we have to also realize that the identity itself is an imagined one. What I mean is, who Prasanna is, to me, is a very different person than to you yourself and to 10 others. And so the identity of Prasanna is imagined by each individual. So which identity of those 10, 12 identities is threatened? So it is only in the imagination that the identity is getting threatened.
Absolutely. Secondly, when it comes to identity creation, there is a strong belief that our identity is created based on whatever past records or the past registration of the things have. But as a human being, especially as a human being, we have that power to continuously choose who we want to be at a given point in time, which means that I can also choose to erase all my past or disconnect with my past and take a new way of being at any given point in time. So next week, if you want to have a chat with a pod of Prasanna or whatever, a bot of Prasanna, then that bot of Prasanna will be based on the LLM, as they call, large language model of Prasanna, whatever available data is. But in reality, after a week, I might be a different person. I might not be my LLM or my data, whatever it says. And that's the power of being a human. Whereas for the past or dead part, I think we can still use it as a powerful tool, because if I want to write a poetry like a Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is not alive, I can do that based on his past data. But to do a drawing like Shantesh is impossible for me using even your past data.
No, so
that's the difference between a live and a dead. If you see, AI is also dead. Shakespeare is also dead. So a dead Shakespeare's data can be used to create a
because
Shakespeare bot.
now that Shakespeare is stagnant, dead is in a way
Defined.
stagnant, defined. It's not going to change any further. But then AI is not dead. AI is then therefore constantly evolving. And to the same question, but depending on who is asking, you or me, based on our past records, it alters the answer. It gives a different answer to you and it gives a different answer to me, particularly to the subjective field, not to sort of, let's say, objective things like mathematics and other physics. Maybe if I ask some subjective question, it will give a very different answer to both of us, depending on our past. So it responds more like a human being.
Yeah. So when I say AI is not alive, I want to say it not in the context of its technology, because in that context of technology, AI is just born. So it is going to be there for several next decades. But when I say it is dead, in the sense that it is not a live thing, that is why we call it as artificial and not natural intelligence. It is artificial intelligence. And in that sense, I am saying that you will never get a response from AI which you will get from a live thing, whether it is, and especially a live human being.
I don't think so. I think
I will give you one example. I will give you one example. If I ask artificial intelligence that I am feeling sad, what should I do? Based on whatever large language modeling has been updated into it, from psychotherapy, psychiatrist, it will tell you what to do for sadness. It will tell you
without feeling what,
go and have a walk.
The experience of sadness is.
Without experiencing, it will tell you go and have a walk, go have a cold shower. You should go and listen to nice music. It will tell you 100 things. But when you say such a question, the first live person will ask you what is making you sad. And then
let me play a devil's advocate here. That a lot of times you express what you're feeling and people around you tend to start giving advice without having experienced that a lot of times.
Correct. No, but you are right.
A man is saying that without experiencing what it's like to be a woman.
Absolutely. So that's a very good point, because I'll tell you, many of the times in our own life, we act like robots or AI. And that is the area which one should be concerned about, because that can be replaced. If without listening to you, I am saying, okay, sad, you are sad. Okay. Okay. I understand. Yeah. You are sad. No, really. If I am doing that, I'm not being authentic listener, then I can be replaced by AI very easily.
AI can perhaps do a better job.
100%.
Because I am also aware that AI is not experiencing it and still asking that at least I know that AI is not really listening. So I'm very clear of that also.
Absolutely. What will happen there is, what you're saying is correct. What you will do is, you will set your expectations low from an AI. Your expectations will be low. It is as if
even if outside not India, expectations maybe not low or high, but if the expectations are not met, you don't get disappointed. That at least.
That is what is called as expectations are low, because you don't be bothered about that. If I go outside India, I don't expect an authentic pani puri, because my expectations are low. Anything I get, I'm happy with that, because American making, or American Indian American whatever, making a pani puri and giving me in New York, okay, this is good pani puri, I will say. I will not compare it with a Juhu pani puri. So you are right in a way that AI people will be much more happy with the response of AI. And that is why if you see even ChatGPT, when they ask questions, the first thing it will tell you is, sure, let me look into it. So that kind of conversation you feel more comfortable, because in your real life you don't have people who say, sure, I will look into it.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a few years ago, somebody shared on Twitter his grandmother's search history, and so every time she asked a question to Google, when Google responded, she would type in the search bar, "Thank you," or "Thank you for taking out time to respond," as if there's another human being on the other side. But now, and while Google appreciated and retweeted it, and people had a laugh about it, people are tending to do the same thing. They're exchanging pleasantries with ChatGPT before actually asking the question, as if that AI bot is going to feel bad about you're directly asking the question without or whatever. So it's, how is that different from that old grandmother?
Absolutely. No, what you're saying is absolutely correct. And then the catch is, this difference between artificial and natural may get blurred. Because when we are in our full senses, we are able to see the difference. When you really get into the thick and thin of it, there is a huge possibility that it may get blurred. So if you genuinely get a good answer, naturally you may say thank you so much for whatever you have given and all those things. So that may come naturally to you.
Yeah. And then AI is becoming like a genie. That naturally you are thinking of the genie as another human being, but it's not in its physical form present.
Absolutely.
So I think we've touched upon a diverse range of topics, and it is food for thought. But also, I wonder how AI and artificial intelligence, or what is the other thing? Machine learning is going to really shape different industries. And do we then feel threatened about our identity, our creation, or do we embrace it with ease and accept it into our life? How is it different from the apprentice who is working with you? If this does a better job and understands your instructions far more clearly, do we then require that apprentice, or do we rely more on a machine? Going forward in future, also in each of the profession, will that then cut down on the jobs, or will it bring more jobs? We really have to kind of look at that. But also, I think this conversation will allow us to embrace the future with a little more grace and with a little more ease. I think at that note, we can complete our today's conversation. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.